What's going on, everyone? So from season 3, episode 10, we got to see a moment with Victor as well as Henry, right? Henry is kind of in this spot where he doesn't know how to approach his son, to start, like, where to begin to really build this relationship with him and Victor, right? Victor's doing all these crazy things and, talking to dolls and stuff, and he doesn't know how to comprehend, how to make up for lost times, all that, right? And then he speaks to Jade in episode 9, and Jade kind of just like, look, this is who Victor is, right? Like, he was shaped, molded, conformed by this place, right? Like, you're trying to change somebody or trying to understand somebody that, this is who he is, right? Like, you just have to embrace it, accept it, right? Like, accept him for who he is now if you really want to build this relationship. And so you saw Henry begin to make that attempt with Victor to kind of just like, hey, how was the doll, right? Like, and then Victor has this moment where he's just like, hey, I need to show you something. It's going to make you hate me. You're not going to like it. And he ends up leading Henry to the burial site where Miranda, the old school version of Tabitha, right? Where Miranda and Eloise apparently is buried. Now, we know for sure Miranda is buried there. Eloise, we're going to talk about here in a moment, because that's what I want to make this video about, talking about Eloise. But kind of continue to go over what was talked about, right? Like, you see Victor show Henry, hey, this is where your daughter and your wife were buried. My mother and my sister, this is where I buried them. Which, quick little side note, how in the world did a kid in Victor get them up there? Right now, he says that, there were pieces everywhere, but he was talking and referring to Eloise, not Miranda. How did he drag Miranda's body up there? Maybe the boy in white helped, right? I just thought, like, that was like something that popped him. I was like, how did he get, like, this was like a trek up a mountain, right? Like, this wasn't like, oh, you just like dragged them 10 feet, right? Like, and how far is this from the bottle tree where she was attacked by Smiley, right? It just, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I was just like, how in the world did he get, like, Eloise, I get, because he said, she was in pieces everywhere, she was so small, right? But what about Miranda, right? Unless they were just, like, there for years, which I think is really interesting. But I digress, right? You see the burial site, and you see Henry relayed to Victor that, like, hey, like, look, it's you're my son. Like, you were a kid. This wasn't your fault, right? And you see Victor dealing with the emotions that come with just the reality that, like, I told my mother to do something or about something, and she would be alive if I never told her that. He's kind of dealing with the weight there, and I do think got some comfort in Henry. But this show is doing everything in its power to tiptoe around Eloise and whether she's dead or not. Now, some people watching this video might go, she is dead. Victor confirmed it. He didn't confirm it. He said he thinks it's her. Right? Henry asks, okay, and is that, Eloise? And then Victor relays, I think so. She was just so small, there were pieces everywhere. That doesn't confirm that she's dead. We have yet to get confirmation that she's dead. Even Victor, when he was talking to Sarah about it, like, everything's like, I think, or maybe, right? Like, I think the writers are doing that deliberately because I think they don't know what they want to do yet. They have a clear outline, right? They have plans to do at least 5 seasons and stuff. They have a clear outline of how this story is going to go and how this is going to progress. I mean, you've seen all these things tie in, right? Like, they clearly have a vision, right? But that doesn't mean that they have every X and O, every T crossed and every I dotted yet, right? They're still trying to figure some stuff out. And I think this is kind of them tiptoeing around whether Eloise is dead or not, opens the door for them to bring her back in any way, shape, or form if they want, right? As soon as you confirm she's dead, then that's it, right? Like, you can't really bring her back outside of, like, a reincarnation scenario, right? So, or like the time travel route or whatever, but why at that point, right? So, but if you keep tiptoeing around it and it's like, I think that's her, I think she's dead, well, now if you do bring her back, It's not like, oh, we all confirmed that she was dead. No, it's like, hey, like we said, Victor wasn't sure. Victor didn't know. I mean, Victor didn't even know he had a sister, right? Like, Victor completely forgot he had a sister. At least now we have confirmation that he had a sister, right? Like, it's just, I mean, because Henry never mentioned Eloise. Henry wasn't, like, out here. Even when Tabitha showed up, right? It wasn't like Henry was like, what about my daughter? No, apparently he could care less. It was kind of like, does Eloise even exist? Or was it like somebody in his mind or something? Like, what is going on? But, now we got that confirmation, but we still don't have confirmation on if Eloise is alive or dead. And again, why else do you go through that approach of continually to tiptoe around Eloise unless you want to leave that door open? Unless you want to potentially have the door open to, hey, we can bring her back in some capacity. Oh, we just introduced this new character. It's Eloise all grown up, right? But also, you don't have the need to bring her back, right? Like, if you don't have something that makes sense, you don't want to go down that road, you don't have to, right? It kind of gives you the luxury of, we can if we want to, but we don't have to. And so you're not really paying in a corner. It's kind of open-ended, right? But they can always just point to that and go, hey, look, you saw the burial, right? Victor wasn't sure because, that, but that was the case, right? Now, you could always go, again, the reincarnation route, right? If you wanted to, and kind of have a character like Acosta, right? We finally got her first name, which is Danny, which that in and of itself, I think is very interesting, right? Because, like, Samantha Brown, who is the actress that plays Officer Acosta, she said in an interview, I did a video on it, and in that video, the interview is linked if you're interested, but she says in the interview that she knows the first name of Acosta, but she's not allowed to say it. She's not allowed to reveal that because it's, she was told not to reveal that. But the name was Danny. Like, what does that have to do with anything? Unless it's like Danielle Abby or Danielle Eloise or something, right? Like, because Danny could be short for something, but like why? Like, Danny had no significance. Now, if it was Eloise, right? Like, it's like, oh, okay, well, then that's, because, like, what other name is there that holds that significance? It's crazy that they made it a point that her name was this important, and then it just was Danny. I don't know, maybe it's just me, but, like, regardless, it's just, you could do the reincarnation route if you wanted to with Officer Acosta, and she could be Eloise, as we've seen with Tabitha and Jade, right? So, how is that limited to just those two, or is there expansion? Is that like a bloodline thing, right? What is it, right? So it's very possible that we get Acosta could maybe play. She's gonna play a bigger role, right? They're clearly setting her up in some capacity, right? I'm not really a fan of her character thus far, but I also think that that's the point, right? She's supposed to be obnoxious, a little abrasive. Kind of feels like the character that's going to try to overthrow Boyd and turn the town on him and stuff like that, right? Like, Acosta kind of seems like she's headed for a clear path, so, like, sure. But, no, I look, they're doing a good job because, again, like I said, I'm not a big fan of her, and a lot of people don't seem to be either, so we do have to put that in perspective. But, could they go the reincarnation route? Sure, I could see it, without a doubt. But, Victor knows his mother's dead. He didn't even know he had a sister. Now he's maybe that she is buried on that hill. Who knows how he dragged those bodies up that hill? I mean, again, Eloise, if it really is her, or even if it wasn't, whoever he buried there was in a bunch of little pieces. So, unless the monsters just shredded them. But the monsters, like, we haven't really seen the monsters just, like, rip people apart to that extent, right? Like, it's usually just, it's usually just like their insides and stuff, right? Like you kind of get like the rib cage. Like usually the carcass is intact, right? Like, but I think that's interesting. However, it's just like kind of feels like, okay, you're leaving us hanging on here for a reason. Like Victor, you've made it a point of Eloise, and Victor doesn't remember her. No one ever seems to really mention her, right? So there's got to be a purpose. There's got to be a point. You're telling me there really just nothing? It's just like, like that's that. She's insignificant. It's like, okay, well then why not just confirm her dead? Why didn't Victor just say, yeah, that's her? Boom, there you go. Done, over with. 3 lines of dialogue. And then we can move past it rather than leaving it so open-ended of like, well, maybe she's alive, maybe she isn't. I think it's the writers don't know and they don't want to paint themselves into a corner one way or another. Because if you confirm she's dead, then that means you won't ever be able to bring her back in any capacity outside of, again, reincarnation or something like that. But if you confirm she's alive, well, then now you have to bring her back at some point. But if you leave it the way it's been, where it's like, okay, maybe she's alive, maybe she's dead, well, then now you can kind of play it by ear. And if you want to bring her back, you can bring her back. Just kind of my thoughts. But as always, this is a discussion, and I pass a question on you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? How do you feel? What are your thoughts? Do you agree? Do you think, like, yeah, it's clear that this is purposeful, right? This isn't by accident. They're clearly trying to keep you guessing, kind of keep you on your toes on, is she alive? Is she dead? Like, what's the deal here? Do you think no? Like, it's, they're clearly just, she's dead. They're not going to bring her back in any way, any capacity. However you feel, whatever your thoughts are. I'd love to hear it either way, so let me know down in the comments below. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. So we enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe to the channel, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one. Thank you.